The diplomatic hall fell silent as the Zytherian delegation entered. Their crystalline forms refracted the station's artificial light into dancing rainbows across the polished floor. At their center walked Queen Silveria herself, her body a magnificent sculpture of living amethyst, each facet containing swirling galaxies of bioluminescence. Alexander stood at attention with the other honor guards, his dress uniform crisp, metals gleaming. 5 years had passed since the war ended. 5 years since the Battle of Kronos Ridge. He kept his eyes forward, professional, even as his heart thundered against his ribs. Captain Alexander Chun. Ambassador Williams gestured him forward. Her Majesty has requested to speak with you specifically. Alexander's boots clicked against the floor as he approached. The other diplomats shifted uncomfortably. Humans and Zytherians had only recently begun peace talks after 3 decades of brutal conflict. Individual audiences were unprecedented. The Queen's translator device hummed to life, her crystalline voice emanating from it in perfect English. "Do you remember me, soldier?" Alexander's throat tightened. He stared into the depths of her faceted form, where colors shifted like auroras. "Your Majesty, look at me, Alexander Chun. Not at my crown. Not at my guards. Look at me." He did. And then he saw it. A hairline fracture running through her left shoulder, barely visible unless you knew where to look. A scar that shouldn't exist on a Zytherian royal, whose regenerative abilities were legendary. Kronos Ridge. Alexander whispered. 5 years earlier, the plasma fire turned the ridge into hell. Alexander's squad was pinned down, their extraction shuttle a burning wreck 2 clicks away. Communications were down. Medical supplies exhausted. Of the 20 soldiers who dropped onto this frozen moon, only 7 remained. Movement, northeast quadrant. Corporal Martinez shouted over the chaos. Alexander swung his rifle around, finger on the trigger, and froze. The Zytherian wasn't attacking. It was crawling, dragging itself through the snow with fractured limbs, leaving a trail of glowing ichor that steamed in the frigid air. Its crystalline body was cracked in a dozen places, and even through his helmet's translator, Alexander could hear its labored breathing. "It's one of them. Take the shot." Martinez screamed, but Alexander saw something else. The ornate patterns etched into the alien's carapace. The way the other Zytherian forces had suddenly pulled back from this sector. The desperate, intelligent plea in eyes that refracted his own reflection back at him. "Hold fire." Alexander dropped his rifle and ran toward the wounded alien. "Chun, what the hell are you doing?" Alexander didn't answer. He reached the Zytherian and dropped to his knees beside it. Up close, he could see the extent of the damage. A Terran plasma mine had detonated nearby, and shrapnel had torn through the alien's body. It should have been dead already. The Zytherian's translator crackled. "Human, why?" "Because someone has to stop this," Alexander said, pulling out his last trauma kit. His hands shook as he applied human medical gel to alien wounds, knowing it probably wouldn't work, knowing he was signing his own court-martial, knowing his squad thought he'd lost his mind. The alien's hand, 3 crystalline fingers, gripped his wrist with surprising gentleness. "They will kill you for this." "Maybe." Alexander pressed synthetic mesh against a particularly bad crack. "But you're not going to die on my watch." For 2 hours, Alexander worked while his squad provided cover from a distance, their confusion and anger palpable over the comms. He used everything he had, bandages, sealants, even duct tape from his pack, to hold the alien together. When Zytherian reinforcements finally arrived, they surrounded Alexander with weapons raised. He stood slowly, hands up, prepared for execution. But the alien he'd saved rose too, spoke rapidly in its crystalline language, and the weapons lowered. The last thing Alexander remembered before being knocked unconscious by his own squad was the alien's voice through the translator. "I will remember you, soldier. Present day, you saved my life," Queen Silveria said, her voice resonating through the diplomatic hall. "When I was young, inexperienced, leading my first reconnaissance mission, you could have let me die. Your commanders wanted you court-martialed for treason. They settled for demotion," Alexander said quietly. "It was worth it. Do you know what happened next, Alexander Chin? After your people took you away?" He shook his head. "I returned to my people and told them what a human soldier had done. They called me naive, said you had ulterior motives. But I had seen your face, soldier. I had felt your fear, Not of me, but for me. The queen's form pulsed with soft light. It took 3 more years of war. 3 years of me arguing, pleading, showing that if one human could choose compassion in the heat of battle, perhaps peace was possible. She stepped closer, and her guards tensed, but she waved them back. This treaty we signed today, this peace that will save billions of lives on both sides. It began in the snow of Kronos Ridge when one soldier decided that mercy was stronger than hate. Queen Silveria extended her crystalline hand. Alexander took it, feeling the cool, smooth surface, seeing his reflection fracture into 1,000 versions across her facets. "I remember you, soldier," she said softly. "I will always remember you." As the hall erupted in cautious applause, as cameras flashed and history was made, Alexander felt the weight of 5 years lift from his shoulders. Sometimes one small act of humanity could change the course of empires. Sometimes the best warriors were those brave enough to refuse to fight at the end.